HBCU Digest Radio, Digest After Dark. Welcome back to intriguing conversation with young alumni from historically black colleges and universities. Indeed, a full house this evening. Orr's the Morganite. Tiff about to get thrown off the show. Frat brother Eric, Laurel from A&T, Line brother KD, Winston get him into school, and Uno on Instagram. That's her new name. Uno on Instagram. That's all I'll say. So we got a lot of people because we got a lot to get into, and the first thing we got to address is, so we're about 2 weeks into the semester for some institutions which have returned to some form of in-person instruction, and as we discussed last week, and I think this is going to be a recurring lead off for us, is that folks won't stay in their room. But now we are operating on that topic in a new realm where schools are actually shutting it off. They're going to online learning. We've seen North Carolina do it. University of North Carolina. Notre Dame has done it also. There's a couple more. I want to say NC State has done the same thing. And there will be more to come. What is interesting about the conversation is you haven't yet seen it from HBCUs. You haven't seen information about widespread outbreaks among students or faculty. You haven't seen information about schools that have actively started in-person instruction reverting back to online. I guess the most responsible question is, how long is this going to last? Or do you think that the HBCUs are doing something right in the sense that even though students are standing around, perhaps the testing is such that the few people that may have it or had or did have it when they got to campus, they've been able to isolate them or send them home? Is this a case where HBCUs, which have led since the beginning of this pandemic, are still continuing to lead even when other schools are struggling?
So listen, like I think to a degree, when we're looking at the students, it is in a very interesting way a form of blaming the victim here, right? Because right. This is a situation that the students were thrusted upon. I'm not necessarily. I mean, for many of these black, students who are at HBCUs, they were outside over the summer protesting, marching, still being engaged in the issues of the day. And we're not contracting, or being, diagnosed with COVID. Not saying that all of them were doing it properly, but for the most part, a lot of them were probably outside to a degree, right? So I think it's one thing to, form the discussion in that way, where it's like, well, HBCUs, we're not hearing about things about these outbreaks. We're not hearing, people. It's one thing if these are people outside. It's another thing if they're having a room party. Like some of the non-divine non-frats and sororities are having on these PWI campuses, right? But I will say the very interesting part about this is looking at places like the NC school system that low-key are hitting the kids for a lick and waiting until tuition is kind of
the day the tuition drops
to get rid of in-person instruction.
The day the census drops, it's like, guess what? Y'all online. Laurel, you went to school in Carolina. You didn't go to Chapel Hill. You went to A&T. And just your knowledge of that state, not that you know every white person that was trying to come outside or every Negro that was trying to come outside, but the politics of that state and why this was even a move. The students have criticized it. The faculty have criticized it at Chapel Hill. They've criticized it at every school that's had to revert back. Is that something that even matters down there?
I mean, so with Chapel Hill, I just feel like it's karma just because of everything else they've been ignoring. And now they've been put on the Summer Jam screen. So I'm kind of just in that moment a little bit. I mean, I feel like in A&T's case, since we are under the UNC system, I do feel like the fault, if we're going to assign fault, is on the UNC Board of Governors. And that's why in response, people were saying, okay, can all the individual schools now on their own do whatever they want to do, right, since y'all done messed up? But also I feel like the reason why they even decided to come in person wasn't even really all on the BOGs. It was probably the donors, especially with Duke and Chapel Hill. It's not just their actual administration. They have a lot of people, I call them shadow people, including all the statues and everything else, that they influence a lot on campus. And I feel like, A&T needs to be like, that's none of my business. I feel like students, I don't think it's the fault of students. Students are going to do whatever they want to do. Like, you can't control people. The most you can do is be prepared and at least have an exit plan. So if you do end up shutting things down and it's not even 2 weeks, then that's what you have to do. And not, we just don't have time to sit around and point the finger at, oh no, it's this person's fault, it's this person's fault. We need to keep it moving because it's already a disruption. And I feel like more of that is just, so I feel like in at least in North Carolina, it's NC State. I don't know if the rest of the schools will, because, we don't want to be next, so why don't we go ahead? Because it's already, like, the school year has already started.
It's already started.
So it's like, at
whatever's going to be, it's going to be. It's already there.
It is what it is.
Or do you think the students have some responsibility in this? Because there's two things I'm hearing about it. One, if the students really wanted to be out of their mom's house and on campus, they would not gather together the way that they're doing. But then the other side of that is, okay, but keep in mind, we're only bringing back a certain amount of students. So it's not like you're at A&T and there's 10,000 undergraduates out there on the yard, maybe like, 200, something like that. Do the students have any level of blame in what's happening?
No, I don't think that they have blame. They should take some type of onus, but that doesn't necessarily look like we're going to accuse them of doing things that they aren't necessarily capable of. Their frontal lobe ain't closed yet. That's where all the reasoning goes. And if they can't reason, these are the same people that we have to tell register on time. You have seated time that you have to attain. If they're not doing that, you want them to socially distance, and that wasn't the culture prior. So we're going to blame the customer, as opposed to putting things in place that will assist them. I just came from New Orleans. They were taking temperatures. They were taking phone numbers so they can do contact tracing if necessary. When I got off the flight, they were doing similar. Where are the faculty and staff and administration doing the things that are necessary for those who they've studied that aren't prepared to move forward in the manner that they've studied, right? Because again, like I said, their reasoning, they don't have the effortful processing that they need. So admin needs to step in. So no, it's not the students to blame. They need to be led.
Or do you agree with it that the students have to be led by the adults when it's clear that the adults are operating on politics more than the reality of what young people are going to do?
I think so, but I think also from a student's perspective, I don't know if they really knew what they were getting themselves into. Let's be frank here. Being on campus in your room with nothing to do is worse than being at home with nothing to do. At least at home, you have some level of freedom. You have a bit more space, usually a bit more social interaction. Did you think people wanted to sit in a room by themselves, like their solitary confinement for 3 months? I feel like it's utterly ridiculous to say to people, go from an area where you have social interaction, people who love you, people who care about you, to a foreign place where you have to sit in your room for 24 hours a day, taking classes online. So I just feel like bringing them back to campus and having nothing for them to do because you can't do anything was a recipe for failure. So you can blame the students, you can blame the faculty, the staff, and the administration, but either one is a bad outcome. I don't see anything good coming out of this because either you're going to be in isolation on campus, isolation at home. I would prefer to be at home with my family, even though we've been together for the last 4 months. But would any of you want to sit in your room for 4 or 5 months for 23 hours a day, only going out to get food and whatever else? I guess you go outside, take a jog. What else is there to do? It's like jail. I hate to compare it to prison because it's not prison, but what they're asking students to do is something you'd ask someone to do in detention. I'll use the word detention.
Shout out to Rawlins Hall at Morgan State. Those jails are like prison. Those rooms are like prison with the metal closets and beds. Tiffany,
OC ain't much farther.
No, it's not. But you're not real unless you come out of OC. Tiff, you actually chased some brothers off the block who were not socially distancing in front of your townhome. Can you talk? Can you talk about what exactly is it? Is it? Are they doing? They're not doing bad things. They're kind of just standing around listening to music, right? It's not like, you know, to use Lowell's term, it ain't summer jam for real. I mean, they're just standing around, but there's danger in just standing around at this point.
Jared, I gotta be right there. I'm gonna let you finish, but
I'm just saying all the videos I've seen
standing around and listening to music. This is not a sock hop. This is not 1955.
Sock hop. Let me say this. I've seen one video, I won't name the school, where people were strolling. And like they were crammed in, and it was a
Nah, name them. I'm sorry.
I can't do it.
Name them. So also, I'm not gonna name the school either, but there's a school in the South where they had a major incident we won't talk about, but they doing way more than just standing there listening to music.
Maybe I'm missing the videos. I've been off, but so if that's true, and it's interesting because North Carolina A&T Chancellor Harold Martin came out. He did an interview today where he talked about that they're monitoring social media. They are actively using their campus safety forces to try to break up stuff. To my knowledge, there have not been any arrests or any incidents of brutality or roughing people up. But is it, by and large, all of y'all agree that it's they really partying? They're not just standing around talking. They're actually partying. That's what all y'all say?
Yes.
Wow, I'm surprised.
I'm not gonna name no schools. I ain't gonna name no schools, but I saw some videos. And they weren't sitting around.
I mean, what do you expect 18, 17, maybe 19 or 20-year-olds to do around this time? It's still hot. The block is hot.
But what I mean, okay, so what are they doing?
I got
what are they doing?
I got firsthand accounts that
nobody's saying it's inherently wrong.
Is at the beach.
Okay,
they're at the beach,
right?
Things by nature are criminal.
They're having little mixers.
They're having mixers.
It's not wrong.
Little mixers.
You know,
Buffalo Beach is
Katie, you said it's not wrong, but what is the activity?
It's not inherently wrong.
What is the activity that takes it to the level of y'all know y'all shouldn't be out here this close? Because I haven't seen
more than 20 of them. Because there's more than 10 20 of them in a small space.
So
that's all it is. That is the thing. That's the thing that we want them to avoid.
Right.
It's one thing, but it's one thing just to be out on the yard, because we've all been experienced like yards where people were just like out on the breezeway. But let's be frank, it's still early outside. It's still early in the semester, so people ain't gotten serious yet, and it's still warm outside.
Right.
And I mean, it just
no doubt.
You just can't deny those two facts. Like, if it's nice outside and it's still early,
they're going to be out there. Right?
People just going to be out there anyway.
Tiffany, you were going to say?
Let me tell you, they being real tribal. The dances are very tribal and homelandish.
Really?
Tribal and homelandish.
Really?
I'm reading between the lines.
I didn't see these videos.
I hope I'm reading that correctly.
Oh, sure.
Tiffany, you're my social media liaison. So tell me what, I mean, what do you think about it?
Listen. What makes it wrong?
I'm sending you some links after this, Jared. I'm sending you some links.
True.
Please
what makes it wrong is that this is still a glable pandemic.
That's the only
But they're 18, Tiffany. They're 18.
This is
that's the only thing, though.
Frontal lobe.
Communicable dis-ease.
All right, let me ask you this question, because you're spitting right now. But if you were still at Howard, would you be in your room, or would you be on the quad?
Should be on the quad.
First of all, we have a yard.
Everybody has a yard, but I'm just saying, like,
Our yard is called the yard.
you're dodging the question. Would you be on it? Yes or no?
No.
And we're gonna go to our first commercial.
It's
right
a lie,
for
man. Let's take a
It's
break.
a lie. It's a lie. We're gonna cut the commercial.
Let's go to the next segment.
When Ebola was in DC, I was in my room. So I can say
All right,
what
Queen
I
Introvert. Okay, Queen Introvert, the minority. Like, let's get out of here.
We're gonna go to our first commercial. The lies. The lies. I gotta be honest. If it were me, even as old as I am, at 18, I would be outside.
You be sitting outside Jenkins.
I would literally be sitting on a wall somewhere.
Coppin ain't had no action, and I promise you, I would have been outside.
Everybody would have been outside. And it's to Laurel's point, the young people think that they don't. She said this last week. They think that even if I do get it, it won't be that bad. Not thinking about that if you catch it and you're asymptomatic, and you do get sent home because everybody's standing outside, you're taking that back to your people. You're taking it back to your community. You're taking it back to your apartment. You're taking it back to your house. You're taking it back to the job where you work. So it is truly, you just don't have the maturity level to think through. You need to duck
these young kids are getting heart conditions. Like these young kids are getting liver damage, kidney damage. Like this is not, even if
that's not readily reported, they don't know.
They don't know.
But
just learning that.
For us to be saying this, what we would do if we were in that age range of what we're saying now, as knowing better as grown people with fully formed frontal lobes, these kids need to be led. And the led would have been y'all staying at home. Y'all can
absolutely right. And that, I think somebody intimated that earlier though.
Y'all fronting like y'all would actually come on. I know mad stuff I did undergrad. I'm like, yo, I'm thankful I survived.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna say this before we jump off and take this first break. And the truth of the matter is, most of the young people that are on the yard, I would imagine that a healthy percentage of that group are not the students who their parents said go on to school. I'm willing to bet that there are a lot of parents who kept their kids at school and say, give it a semester, let's see where we are, springtime or maybe even next fall, but you can still resume classes online. I don't want you to go to campus. A lot of those young people that are on campus are probably folks who are basically doing it on their own, where they're coming from homes where their parents are probably like, I don't care what you do.
I could
and
see
so they're probably, if they're living with their parents. We're going to talk about the next big headline. HBCU graduate extraordinaire at this point, Kamala Harris, and officially accepts the vice presidential nomination for the Democratic Party. What does it mean for HBCUs? We'll be right back. Dodgers After Dark, and we're back. We wrapped up a conversation about students not staying in the room, how many of us wouldn't do the same. Let's get into the other big headline. Howard University's the pride of the Bison, Kamala Harris officially accepts the vice presidential nomination of the Democratic Party last night. Shouts out HBCUs, everybody feels good. It's tough for me because I want to have faith in the sister. I want to have faith in what she professes to love about the HBCU community. I have no doubt that she does. The scary part for me is that we're coming off of, for however evil and twisted this administration may be, it was rather productive for HBCUs. And I wonder if Biden Harris pick up steam, they win an election, is there reason to believe that her HBCU ties will turn into HBCU policy? I just don't. I mean, this is a difficult conversation because we can't talk bad about Barack Obama. You can't talk badly about Kamala Harris unless you have receipts. Obama gave us receipts. We will see with Senator Harris. Is the symbolism enough to make you optimistic about what we may get from a Biden-Harris administration centrally on HBCUs? Centrally on HBCUs, not overall, because Laurel mentioned this before. There's a lot of stuff to clean up when they get here. But that is not to say that we should let HBCU funding and HBCU development go to the side. Katie, let's start with you.
I'm going to be hopefully optimistic because the community set records of donations to the campaign after Harris made the ticket. And so that I would hope that means that we had their ear. And I want to play about the numbers because we really are talking about 1% of the country, literally, in terms of who we're assisting. So we have to sell it in a way that makes sense for them to invest in our schools. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I have this high expectation for them to solve every problem within the system in regards to HBCUs, because they got to start with K-12. And before you even get to K-12, you got to solve the pandemic. So I'm hopefully optimistic that we'll get there eventually, but I don't expect anything immediate if they win.
Winston,
so we'll just have to wait and see.
Winston, what do you think?
I think my focus for them is like trying not to reinvent the wheel. Basically, like there's things like the White House HBCU initiative, things that are kind of already in place, things that the current regime has already tried to roll with. So my hope, my optimism, and to Katie's point, my optimism in the situation would be that they kind of build upon what's already there and see what ways they can try to, fill into the systems or things that were already in place, kind of moving in that direction. Just kind of similar to we talked about before with, with President Obama, the pressure that comes with being an African-American president or vice president in this case. And then, the history of her being educated by an HBCU as well. Folks might be kind of looking at, what do you, how much you really riding for them? Are you giving them preferential treatments, those kind of things? So my hope would be, just kind of like, again, moving with stuff that's already there and investing in that, job opportunities, internship opportunities, hoping to see some young people from HBCUs that get opportunities to work in the White House or those kind of things. That's kind of like where I would hope to start with. Maybe on the low, being able to kind of get donations up and talking to folks about those things. But in general, just trying not to reinvent the wheel and working with the systems already in place.
I was talking to a president earlier today, and I throw this at you, Ona. This president told me it's almost a catch-22 in the sense that if Trump wins again, HBCUs he's gonna tear HBCUs a new one, because what will happen is black folks will not have voted for him, and there will be no reason to be beholden to them in a second term. If Biden and Harris wins, it might be the same, go along, get along, do an HBCU commencement speech, but don't do anything substantive because they know they got us. Do you think that's a legitimate assessment? I had never thought of it like that, but it looks like this one president believes it's going to be dire and it's going to be tough no matter who wins. Would you accept that?
I mean, it is going to be tough. I think that people assume, like when Obama was in office, we're going to get this. He's still a president and he still has to follow certain guidelines. Like he's not solely here to do things for us, right? So with the administration, with Biden and Kamala, like the thought process that we're going to get something simply because they're there is faulty. Like the joint is flawed. And when you move like that, expecting somebody to give you something, you end up in a tight space. So we should still be working towards those things that we need, but knowing that she understands, because she went to Howard, because she understands HBCUs, because she understands D9. And I think that people still need to do their due diligence. People and organizations need to do their due diligence, as well as remaining, remaining hopeful, like Katie said earlier. But you got to do your work. Ain't no handouts, because there's still policy in place that is intended to hinder us in so many different ways. That means systemic. Like, it is what it is.
Laura, what does that work look like then? Because we always talking about, the HBCU community has to be more active in engaging with our elected officials, and we got to be more nuanced in asking and talking about policy issues. She has already shouted out HBCU, aka Divine Nine. So she's already pointed out, here are 3 groups that I'm affiliated with. Do you think that that's the point of contact for reaching her, or is it the same thing that we've been doing, Urban League, NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus, or do we have to do a new thing, or do we rely on our traditional means?
I mean, I think it's a both and situation, because of course, since she's already technically plugged in, at the same time, if elevated to this new office, she's going to have less time, because again, this is a new situation where it's not just the regular duties of a VP, but also that's like the extensive cleanup post-Trump, on top of whatever else the universe decides to throw at us. Hopefully no more pandemics. So I think that her networks, both aka Howard, should definitely be at the front of the line, but they shouldn't be the only people in line. And that everybody has a role, whether they're a student, early professional, seasoned professional, CBC member, all of those networks. I mean, I say this all the time that, Black people don't like to collaborate when it's really necessary. And I feel like after this, if we don't like unite truly, not just, everyone with their own separate agendas and trying to, touch the hem of Kamala's garment in order that they personally can achieve something, but more so like, okay, this is something that needs to fix, or this system does not work. So how do we do a new system? You're in a position where you can actually actively do something hands-on. What are you going to do? I don't know.
It's a fascinating point that you're making, and I will toss it to Eric. You do work with the HBCU collective, so y'all actively talk about legislative engagement on HBCU issues. How early, if you haven't started already, how early do you begin the conversations with the Biden-Harris campaign in anticipation of a win, where you start talking about how do we get the ball rolling on some of these things?
So that's I want to say earlier this year and last year, primarily speaking, HBCU collective. I mean, we remain bipartisan, but we're open to whichever candidates on any level of government want to actually work with us in formulating HBCU policy, because it's important to have people who, I like to say, and for one extent, a lot of people who are the ones shaping policy as it pertains to HBCUs have no connection to it. They don't look like us. There's not a lot of people who represent us or come from the places that we come from that are in these rooms talking to them. So that changes things, right? And I think, we've been engaged in everything going on, but I think, with us right now, there's a couple of things that we're working on, and I'm not going to spill too much. That last night, her comments were really a call to arms, and people don't really understand what a call to arms means. A call to arms means that there should be a level of expectation that comes with. But like you said, like, it's great to have this feeling like, oh, well, we should know that we have their ears. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's think that we have their ears. Now it's time to talk. And we don't do a lot of talking once we think that somebody, has our ear, right? So when you're in a situation where, oh, well, they know us, they see us, they understand us, that don't mean they're going to do nothing. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate to say it, but like, not all alumni members are family. Not all frat brothers are not all frats are brothers. Not all sorors are sisters, right? So like this belief that her being in that role is going to change things means that we want her to, but we also are going to continue to push the agenda that we need her to follow through on it, right? Because the unspoken truth is that she also wants to get reelected in 4 years, and possibly get elected herself in 8 years. So this is when it starts. We start pressing the issue now and having an expectation that she has to follow through. But we can't expect somebody to hear us if we're not talking.
Laurel spilled the secrets on this last week. She'll be the president. If they win, there's going to be something that comes up where Joe Biden doesn't finish this term. And so essentially you are voting Kamala Harris for president. Now, to that point, if that is true, if that is the plan, if that is the
standard, hope it's not, because people hate individuals that didn't get elected.
Well, people hate women, unfortunately, and that's going to be a problem, a huge problem. Right. Not that she isn't sharp, because she's brilliant enough to do it. She was brilliant enough when she campaigned. You can have some issues with her record, but certainly it shouldn't be a thing where there's a question of is she too ambitious? She can't run a campaign, all that nonsense. But I would say, Tiffany, to the point of the access to Senator Harris, Howard is probably the strongest one that she has. I would even say stronger than Alpha Kappa Alpha in a sense, because they can't directly lobby and promote and endorse and do a lot of political things. Howard folks can just in their private lives as citizens. So do you think that Howard, whether that's through the Alumni Association, whether that's through a chapter, whether that's through whatever kind of venue, takes the effort to start saying, hey, let's start talking, sis?
I appreciate the question. But no, and I'm trying to say this as best as I possibly can. But the simple answer to that is I can't tell you how Bison moved. I literally can't. I can tell you what I do that's unique to other Bison, but that's just an understanding that we have as Bison. So for instance, the day that the Honorable Kamala D. Harris was named vice or Biden's pick, I think another Bison got elected to, I think, Fulton County something DA or something. It was another
municipal role.
Yeah, it was another email that came out right after that one or right before it. Mm-hmm. And it was like, duh, no brainer. Like, this is what we do. And so there are Bison who are in supportive roles in government, local government, state government, whatever leadership role, and those who influence others who may not be Bison in these roles. It's either you're in it yourself or you're influencing a decision to be made. That's the best type of answer that I can give to that question. And more to the point of, it's about creating a path of, I think, the least resistance to get what it is that we need. So clearly a president, a vice president, they can't do anything. Well, they shouldn't do anything alone. For somebody like the Honorable Kamala D. Harris.
You just gonna keep saying the Honorable?
Yes, I am, because that's who she is. She's going to need all the help.
Okay.
And the help that we can do for her as people of the organizations that she's part, or not organizations, but the communities that she's part of, is to elect people who can get the things that we need done.
Well, I think that you make an interesting point, because that speaks to how eager and how aggressive are we going to be electing folks to Congress. Oris, go ahead. You had a last word.
I'm a little pessimistic just because I see the tide changing within the Democratic Party. So, for instance, someone who really is more of the Kamala Harris type is Lacey Clay, who just got beat. Like, when we look at things changing, we look at, like I said, like Cori Bush winning that election or winning that primary. She's gonna win the election. Obviously, it's a runaway in St. Louis. But with those type of things changing, I see her very centrist, moderate Democratic views not necessarily aligning with those views of working class Black people, and those are the people who go to HBCUs. So even if we get funding directly from that administration, will the policies in place really benefit working class Black people? And I'm very pessimistic about that. And again, I was very frank. She was not my first pick. I think she's very centrist, and because she does want to win in 8 years, I don't believe that she's going to be as aggressive as I would like her to be. Just like Obama wasn't as aggressive as I like him to be. So I think that's going to be a very difficult play, and only time will tell. But in the same way that Black people, in some sense, gave Obama some passes, I think that she's going to be given those same type of passes. It's just going to see how long it takes for people to really start to say, "Hey, where's the legislation? Where is the push on these things?" Because to this point, within Biden's particular platform points, I don't know how much he can get done, because even the Democrats are going to be a bit more splintered, I see, after this election, with the changes happening in St. Louis, in Baltimore, in Florida. It's going to be difficult.
It's tough, man, just to wrap it up. I mean, because you're right, in a sense that you're not just talking about progressive versus conservative policy ideals now. You're now talking about socialist versus progressive versus conservative. And so even the Democrats are split on, are you liberal enough? Are you progressive enough? So they have to hash stuff out, just like the GOP had to do when the Tea Party broke out. Mm-hmm. They had to fight and say, you're not. They were saying you're not conservative enough. So the parties have shifted in doing these things where people.
And remember, nothing got done.
Right.
During the Tea Party movement, nothing got done.
Because they fought each other. Everything got put off. And so
exactly.
And then on top of that, to Katie's point, all of this conversation ceases until you fix the pandemic. And however, whatever that price tag is, whatever that final number is that said you got all the testing you needed, you got all the PPE you needed, you got all the workplace loans you needed. Now let's talk about running government. That may be a problem within itself, and it may shape out to be that Biden and Harris bear a burden of a price tag that they can do nothing about. And so,
it's so unfortunate.
Black folks just we gotta be more nuanced and more dialed into how does government work before you say Kamala's the savior and she's gonna do it. It's the same thing with Obama.
Keep in mind, like, there are other wins that we can get as a community outside of just funding for HBCUs. If they magically pull off getting rid of all of the loans, eradicating student loans for everybody, doesn't that affect the bottom line of
HBCU students, right? Yep.
So it's just stuff like that. We just got to read the fine print. Some stuff is for us. It's just not going to say it's for us. Or some stuff we benefit from. We just got to figure out how we benefit from it. That's all. Just be patient. We got a long, either way you look at it, we got a long 4 years ahead of us.
Ain't nobody patient in the age of Twitter, baby.
No.
Let's take another quick break. Generation. We're gonna come back and talk about sports pushing things to the spring. What is it gonna look like to have football and basketball running simultaneously, so to speak, and what does that mean for HBCU homecoming? Digest After Dark. We'll be right back. Digest After Dark, welcome back. Let's talk about sports. The two Division I historically black conferences, the Southwestern Athletic Conference and the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, or the conference formerly known as the MEAC, for the rest of this year. They have announced that they're going to push football to the spring and have released schedules to that point. So if everything goes well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, football will begin in February, which for those of us who are truly tie-dyed HBCU alumni know that coincides with CIAA and the MEAC and all kinds of stuff.
It looks stupid. It just looks stupid.
Took the words out of my mouth.
But look though, it looks stupid for ways that first of all, we worried about the wrong thing, all right?
Okay.
My thought process is here. Explain to me why all of these boards have not came in, called together a meeting via Zoom or whatever they choose, and came together and said, we need to amend our FY 2020 budget. We could reallocate all this money towards sports that we're spending this year to, I don't know, updating classrooms so they can actually hold hybrid learning, moving money towards the research so our research actually outweighs our athletic spending for once, or I don't know, fixing dorms, fixing facilities, updating things that actually matter in the long term, considering that you were given a reprieve this year. Mm-hmm. This year, you can actually prioritize academics over athletics. And sorry, because you can't go nowhere anyway. So it just looks stupid. I don't care if a single sport is played this year in HBCUs. I really do not care. I care if our schools don't take this opportunity and happen to improve themselves in the midst of this moment.
Tiffany, do you care about sports? Because you rarely go to games. I think you went to one as an undergrad. Does it matter to you? And I'm not asking that in a diss way. I'm asking, and I'm going to describe you as a casual fan. You will watch sports if it's something where you have heard this may be intriguing to watch. Does it even matter? Does it matter to you if football and basketball are running at the same time in the spring?
First of all, I went to more than one game. That's one.
Prove it.
I have 3 out of the 4 shirts from the Morehouse Howard Hampton Low Classic that was happening.
So you went to the store,
right?
No,
shopbison.howard.edu.
I was there. Don't do that. That's one. 2, I think it's great for people to have hope. I would like to see it. I would
love to see it.
And given with the fact that we are still in a global pandemic, I don't know how any of these students will be prepared to play in the spring, if it even happens. Because are y'all practicing? Because if y'all practicing, that means we violating social distancing and all of that. So
practice.
Yeah. I just have all the questions, but honestly, I would like to see it. Only because are we going home or are we not going home? Are we doing what we have to do now to make sure that we can be somewhere in the spring? I would like to see it.
That part.
Let me ask this, Una. You
don't care if they happen at the same time. I really don't care. Now, I do have a question though, because who's paying for this?
Well, I mean, you would believe the NCAA this is why this is a factor, because they don't want the NCAA to withhold, scholarship support resources. You don't want to withhold, TV, revenue from ESPN and local affiliates and stuff like that. So they're trying to say, yeah, we're not going to play in the fall because y'all made a big fuss about it, but we're going to do this in the spring. So don't withhold that money from us.
But look, we just keep pushing things along. We just keep kicking a rock down the road.
That's what this whole thing has been. Remember in March they said, oh, we're going home, with the exception of the HBCUs. We're gonna go home for the rest of the semester. But everything else was, oh, give it 2 weeks. These rules and social distancing, we're only gonna be closed for 2 weeks. Then it's a month. Then this is gonna be over by Easter. Then it's like, oh, we'll be back for beach week. It's be gone by 4th of July. So all of this, remember, all the closings didn't really come until July, maybe late June, July. People weren't really announcing ain't gonna be no fall until June, July. They have been kicking this thing down the road.
But at the same time, it's like, yeah, people are like, we're kicking it down, or they're kicking it down the road, but we're still not doing what we need to do as people, being responsible, wearing our masks, socially distancing.
We talked about this. Everybody's stupid. The 18-year-olds don't have a developmental frontal lobe. The adults are politicking about it. We don't want to be in the house no more. Everybody's dumb. You haven't accepted this fact yet?
I give the same challenge group of kids. The group of kids hope that we're gonna be playing somewhere in the spring, and that doesn't make sense because we know the longer you keep kicking it down the road, we just kicking it down the road.
So.
We're not doing what y'all need to do.
Look, numbers is going up. Numbers is straight going up. And still not changing. They not changing their posture at all. So with that said, like, what are we gonna do? Like, because people are coming from mass, and then they get to the institution and they got this, they got that, and then they going back home, and then they going over here, and they traveling. Where's again the temperature check, the test?
But
my homeboy just had a wedding, and he had everybody tested so that they wouldn't have to wear masks during the pictures. That's the type of forethought that universities need.
But what I'm saying, so I'm just saying from the prospect of everybody's trying to sell optimism, right? Everybody knows this ain't gonna work. They're just trying to. Una ain't falling for it. So I'm just saying, let's pretend that this actually works. And from a logistical standpoint,
no, I don't want to. No,
nobody wants to pretend.
Mr. Rogers, I'm not doing that no more.
No,
like we can't make believe that this is going to like disappear. That's what 45 said, and then here we are.
He said Easter, so I mean,
right, and here we are. It's Halloween.
I think my biggest problem with it is, even if they play, who's watching? Right? They're not Power 1 schools. This is not LSU. This is not Florida. This is not Alabama.
Right?
Like, who's watching?
We'll watch A&T. They come on TV all the time.
Sure, but those are $100 million programs per year, right? They make money off of athletics. Our schools don't.
You know what I think?
And so who's benefiting from them playing?
That's true.
Because even if they get tape out there, nobody's going to trust it.
No, well, you know what? This reminded me of something that Tiff said on the podcast a long time ago about athletes who just don't like be processing the thoughts of things all the way through, right? And it's worse than that because I think the athletes are dealing with something that like also administrators are dealing with, right? Because the thought process for a lot of times is that we have these campus athletics that don't yield any revenue, but we have them because they're supposedly yielding some revenue. So now they are going to miss the revenue, which really isn't the issue of missing revenue. It's the issue of they don't have a means to spend money. So it's like, are you not really like? And my question is like, for some of the D1 schools, are the money games really yielding that much money that they are really willing to like say, oh, we're going to have sports somehow, even though it makes absolutely no sense. Like they're not processing thoughts in order. And at the end of the day, like I said, these schools are making decisions that pertain to student athletes.
Here's the thing,
and not thinking about academics.
Let me throw this to Laurel, because she's the only one out of all of us that goes to a football school that is actually currently good. Would you? The fascinating part of this to me is that in all of this conversation about any sport, pro or college, and more so college, you don't hear the alumni and the fans saying no, don't do it. For the most part, you're hearing them say, yeah, I'll buy some tickets. If you're social distancing in the stadium, I'll go. It's not like you hear the alumni saying, I'm not for this. So at what point do you think it's possible that alumni play a factor in saying, yeah, go ahead and push it? Because I want to go. I want to see an Aggie football game at 1 and then go see a basketball game at 7 on the same campus. Traffic be damn, all that stuff. Do you think alumni are going to actually say, y'all are taking this too far? Y'all are doing too much, or are they going to be party to it? Because that's a big part of this equation. If alumni say we're not coming or we don't like this, maybe there's a different decision. But if alumni are saying we for it, what do you do?
I mean, you also got to remember like we got, let's see, grandma, grandpa, they high risk communities. They ain't going nowhere. Mm-hmm. They're going to watch it on TV if, somebody secures some funds or Mackenzie Bezos want to cut some more checks so people can have the little bootleg NBA bubble. So they're not going anywhere. Then you got the mid-range people that's grown. They got kids. They take care of their parents. We still got to think about K-12 school. That's still going to be going on. Mm-hmm. So, like, are people going to be taking time off? Who are they going to leave their kids with? Mm. Like, all of these things are interconnected. So unless they're alumni that like live across the street from the school and they can stand outside in February, I mean, these are just all different things. I mean, I don't know if collectively alumni would say anything before a decision is made because, people got things to worry about. But then also just in general, most alumni don't really get riled up until after decisions are made and it hits the timeline. So I just think in the midst of everything else going on, I don't think that's a priority for them. I think most people are, if they have kids on campus, they're worrying about them getting sick or them going back to campus or not. I think it sucks for the student athletes too, because they're going to be in a tough position. And I'm worried about, I don't trust the NCAA.
No.
And I don't know if they're going to give them an extension on eligibility, or if they're going to honor their scholarships that they're honoring.
Not enough people talking about that. Not enough people talking about that.
They announced today.
Basketball players. What about the softball kids? What about the bowling kids? What about that? What are they going to do?
What about the volleyball players that want people to put extra funding towards, school so they can be like University of Virginia?
What? No, those are excellent points.
My God.
Or is your brother plays Division I football? What kind of conversation are you having from the perspective of an athlete who may have to play in the spring? Things may not be settled at this point. What is it like between he and your family? What kind of considerations are at play?
So there's like three things. The first thing is that if they play, my brother plays football, him playing a season in the spring means that we don't want him playing a season in the fall.
Exactly.
I was thinking that
that's what's not getting a lot of discussion.
That's what my issue, just for his health and safety. Like, football is not basketball. This is the most physical sport that people play. Who you have one to two concussions a game. You may have 1 or 2 concussions a season, for an entire NCAA Division I basketball team. So with the injury risk is the first thing. The second thing is just the time. And is there enough time to get everything done? And then the third thing for me is eligibility aside, there really isn't, in my opinion, a good reason to send these kids out to play in general. Now, again, professional athletes get paid and they are compensated for their risk. There's insurance benefits. There is no NCAA hospital. There ain't no, there's no insurance plan for him after he's done with school. Like, none of these things are taken care of. There's no union. There's nothing. So for me, and I get kind of upset with this in other group chats I'm a part of, because people who are not putting themselves or their loved ones at risk are saying these kids should go out and play for our entertainment. And it really pisses me off, because it's my brother who you want to go out and entertain you so you can have your homecoming and go stroll with your people you ain't seen in 20 years to make yourself feel good. But he's putting himself at risk. So to me, it's like, we don't have to have college football, especially for HBCUs. We don't make no money. Let's be real. Like, he's talking about, we make some money, revenue. We don't make no money. We are in we're in the red. We rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
And you want people's kids and family to go out there so y'all can have homecoming or y'all can have Bayou Classic. I don't care. Like, I just don't care. So to me, it pisses me off on multiple levels, but just fundamentally, what I've said to my brother is just control what you can control. He's getting ready to graduate, get out of school, and then make a decision if you want to do a 5th grad year and be a grad transfer, stay where you at, or do whatever you want to do. But to me, I think that HBCU alumni are the problem, because we are consistently more concerned with our own entertainment and social lives and not the health and safety of the kids who are coming up under us, who are entertaining us at these football games.
I have heard someone say, from an athletic standpoint, if you don't play, it is that much easier and that much faster that recruits and athletes will forget about you. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I know there is some, but I think everybody's in a pandemic, right? So everybody's, you've heard about the University of Alabama. That's true. I mean, but are you really torn and say Alabama State no longer exists and I only see Troy? Because
there's thousands of D1. There's thousands of football players who would love to take them D1 spots. Like, let's just be real. Like, if we for the D1 schools, there are thousands of D2 players who, if someone's like, I don't want to go to A&T or go to Central no more because they're not playing. There's thousands of kids who would have went to Winston or would have went to Livingstone who are definitely gonna say, I'll take my ass to Central.
I'll go to Central, right, in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Winston,
they'll be fine.
Winston, you have the fate of Detroit's black college prospects in your hands and your hands alone. What do you say about folks who are looking to play sports, coaches that contact you, even from Detroit high schools or from colleges that are connecting with your students? I know you're more focused on college entry, period. But what is the interface that you have with athletics, and what is it looking like today?
I think that people underestimate, like Laura brought up some points. Like I've sent probably more young ladies to play sports than I've sent young men, like volleyball and bowling and softball, some of these other sports that allow a student to maybe get a partial scholarship or 65-75% of their school paid for. That's a huge component to, their college exists. Like whether or not they might end up going to a school out of state like an HBCU because they can afford to do so because they can get a small D1 or D2 scholarship to be able to be a part of those athletics. So it's definitely a part of the conversation, a lot of times, especially I say more so for the young ladies that I'm able to work with. So, I mean, it's a real thing. It's a real, I think the Lauren brought up the eligibility thing and the health risk part. Those are huge components. I think we're seeing it even without student athletes, just in general, with parents wanting to send their babies away and whether or not they feel comfortable enough sending them away in the middle of a pandemic and, what does the schools have in place for those things? I mean, it's more than a notion, and great points have been brought up about what revenue is actually benefiting us for sending them there. What is the risk reward piece for, allowing them to play it? I mean, I got a few young ladies who'll be in Detroit this year. They on volleyball and bowling scholarships and other things, and they're going to stay here and do the first semester at home, especially because they're not practicing. They don't mandatory. They don't need to be on campus right now. So it's a real thing. It's a very real conversation to have. I try to stop short of telling people what to do. My main thing is getting all the information we can get in front of you to be able to make an informed decision about what's best for your young person in the end. So I'm just about getting the information in front and allowing them to see what's what.
It's so interesting because none of y'all said it's going to be lit this spring.
Oh,
Not that I'm surprised at that, because I know y'all think at a higher level than that. But so many people are saying it's going to be lit in February 21, and I think that is the challenge. That is the challenge.
It's gonna be budget.
people are stupid. Because they don't have, you know what it is? You know what it is? Hold on. I'll tell you what it is. It's because they don't have winter homecomings. And so you don't know what it's like to be relegated to being inside of buildings
Coppin State
during
rage.
homecoming.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Coppin, let's go with the Eagle rage. Go ahead.
If somebody that experienced spring homecomings at a small school, it's cool. But when you have a blizzard outside and 2 sports playing, like, let's talk. Like, come on, let's be real. Like, think about it regionally. It just doesn't make sense.
It's Coppin rage.
Tell them why you mad, son.
The fact that the MEAC put out their plan in the last couple of days, so the SWAC, about spring football. Again, let's say a perfect world, vaccine comes out New Year's Eve,
and everybody takes it. And everybody takes it. Which one
can take it? Yeah, they can't produce that much in 6 months. So
right.
we're talking about a 1 to 2 year plan.
Right.
So, but even in a worst case, to me, it's like, how do you, in a right mind, say we're going to have these MEAC schools like Delaware State, like Morgan, start playing football in February? Like, are we being serious right here? Like it's stupid. But you know what else is stupid? What else is stupid is that
they're gonna be hitting to get warm.
They've already started trying to sell tickets to classics. This is dumb.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and I think out of all of us, I think Una, you actually competed in college in a sport. If you play football in the spring, you're right. You're not going to be able to feel that in the fall. So, and if you try, let's say if you could, but even if you could, what does that do for the other sports in the spring? Because now you're extending your football athletes and everybody else, all your fall athletes in the spring, and you got your spring athletes competing. They already hard pressed for recognition. They're already hard pressed for coverage. What is that going to do to your SID staff?
Man, forget the hard press for coverage. We all got to share the gym. We on top of
practice facilities. So you're talking about, and guess who's going to get top notch on that? Football. Everybody else get out of here. And that's not
also
especially. Oh my God!
Weight room.
March Madness?
This is our weight room.
What is that going to do to recruiting? Are there going to be exemptions where you can recruit during the season? Because typically that's not the case.
And then I think the other thing we need to talk about, the NFL draft happens in April. I don't see a reason for them to change that.
Mess. That's a whole other mess.
They're going to be playing championship games in April.
Right.
So now how are these kids going to be adequately assessed?
Contact. Hey, look, I appreciate it. Everybody who's listening, continue to support us, hbcudigest.substack.com. Don't forget to join us on IGTV for the Overtime Next. It's been Digest After Dark. We'll see you next time. Peace.